Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight into enrollment at the college level. My guest today is Dr. Tani Castaneda, and she is the Associate Vice Chancellor of Enrollment for Management at Rutgers University, New Brunswick. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So usually I start my guests where they went to college. So where'd you go to school?
I went to Wellesley College in Massachusetts, which I think is one of the finest liberal arts colleges in the country. It's also one of the few women's colleges that remains in the country. It was a great education. It's hard to leave it there, though, because there were a lot of steps to getting me there.
Sure.
Yeah.
So let's just go back in high school first. Mm-hmm. When did you start thinking about college? Was it freshman year of high school, senior year? Mom and dad get involved? How did it all begin for you?
Yeah, so this is a good question, right? So I made the decision to go to college in my sophomore year, and I would say that it was a decision for me. So I was the first in my family to go to college. I'm a first-generation student. And, the whole process was very intimidating, but I had the really good fortune of growing up in a school district where it was kind of expected of the vast majority of students that were going to that high school that they would end up in college, right? So you want to do what your friends are doing, right? I had that at least example in front of me, but had a very supportive teacher, actually few supportive teachers that really encouraged me, and it was in my sophomore year when I was doing really well in a biology class and thought, wow, I think I might be somewhat intelligent. Maybe I should go to college, and it kind of grew from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now you go to Wellesley. Wellesley. You go to Wellesley College, and was that the only school? Were there other schools involved before you picked that one?
So this comes back to sort of why I do what I do today, which is that I don't think it's advisable to follow the path that I went through in the college admissions process. So I didn't have a lot of resources, available to me just in terms of guidance, but I had these few teachers that were very encouraging. But I was very intimidated by the process, the admissions process. I picked 5 colleges, and you would be hard-pressed to find a common thread between the 5. Wellesley was the most selective college that I chose. I did not visit a single college. I think I was far too fearful that I would get on campus and have absolutely no idea what to do.
Wow.
And I think my parents probably felt the same too. So actually for me, the first time I stepped on a college campus was the first day of orientation at Wellesley College. Wow. So you start to see, okay, this is partly why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I want students and families, particularly first generation, those who would be less familiar with the process, to have better guidance and to kind of have the confidence to ask the right questions and speak up.
Yeah. So you get there, you pick the school, you get there. What's it like?
So I would say that first year, I felt like I was in over my head. I had spent 2.5 years thinking a lot about getting to college and very little time thinking about what am I gonna do once I get there. Yeah. Wellesley is it's consistently in the top 10. Is brilliant young women who are just really talented, really high achieving, and I was amazed and I was sort of blown away by all these incredible young women who could articulate an opinion. Sure. and so confidently, but it pushed me, and it pushed me to kind of rise to that level and achieve. And so the subsequent years got easier,
Sure.
But that first year was really, really hard.
The adjustment year.
Yeah, the adjustment year, and I think, again, lesson to be learned, with families and other first generation college students, you have to speak up. You have to ask for help.
Sure.
Just about every college and university has every resource, at their fingertips to offer students when they need help.
Sure.
But you have to take that initiative to say, something's going wrong, I need help.
So now you're a doctor, a PhD?
EDD. Yeah.
EDD.
Mm-hmm.
So there's other schools involved?
Yes, right. So I've valued my education since making that decision to go to college, and valued my experience as an undergrad. And throughout my career, I've kind of looked at education strategically to sort of help. It's sort of a stepping stone. If I wanted to shift on a path, or if I wanted to stay on a path, how could I use it to enhance my experience, or perhaps bolster me to the next level, if you will.
Sure.
So I have a master's in psychology from Brandeis University, and that was a very research-oriented program. And I have a master's in counseling psychology from Boston College, and that was a much more therapy, clinical, about the person type of program. And then recently I did get my doctoral degree in organizational development and leadership. And I did that while I was, working in this role and roles I've held before.
So now, graduating from Wesley College.
Wellesley
College. I'm going to get it right sooner or later. Wellesley College, graduating from there, how does one go from there to becoming the Associate Vice Chancellor at Rutgers University?
Yeah, so, as I said, there were sort of twists and turns on the path, which I think is natural in any career. And I think that's actually healthy in the student's development as well, even post graduation, but we can talk about that later. I did not start my career in higher education administration. I had majored in anthropology and Spanish language. I have always had kind of a general interest in human systems and culture and behavior. And so I started, it all kind of makes sense now, but I started working for an executive search consultancy, kind of, matching the right person to the right organization, and got the first master's kind of in between there, where I was jointly appointed in the Department of Psychology and the Department of Business. So my specialty was actually organizational behavior in that first program. And then I used that to work for a market research firm where I was a project director, and I was looking at behavior, consumer behavior, in the context of how it relates to products and services. But I wanted, I think I just wanted something that was a little bit more human, if you will, and to be kind of closer to helping people. And that's what led me to the other side of psychology, which was counseling psychology. And it was there at Boston College, actually, that the admissions office approached me, knowing well before I did that skills in recruitment, skills in marketing and market research, and skills in counseling are actually really valuable in an admissions environment. So I started working for them, and decided, that was a good path and would keep me in a university environment, which is an exciting place to be.
So you started out at Boston College?
Mm-hmm, in graduate admissions, yeah.
And then after that was Rutgers? Or did
so I worked for a couple of other colleges, Clark University, WPI on the student services side, and then actually from Clark, we moved back to New Jersey, because I'd grown up here, and that's when I started working for Rutgers. And my first role was really kind of a hybrid of recruitment and new student programming and student mentorship and development and academic advising. And I got to know folks in the admissions office there. And when Rutgers made the choice that we really needed to put together a strategic plan to start recruiting internationally, they tapped me to lead that effort.
Wow.
And then I sort of took on subsequent roles in the office that expanded eventually into this one.
So now, enrollment management at Rutgers, does that encompass the admissions office as well as international students and everything?
Yeah, so within enrollment management, which is kind of an umbrella department, we have undergraduate admissions, which is the unit that I oversee, the department. There's financial aid, there's the registrar, there's the one-stop student services center, and there's our campus information services. So it's actually quite a large department, and we all work together on kind of an enrollment management vision, which is really about the continuity of the student experience. So it doesn't just stop when we admit a student and they matriculate on the first day of class. It's, how do we make their experience successful so that we retain them for the first year, the second, the third, through to graduation. Yeah. And make sure that their needs are being met along the way. But my office is the admissions office, and under that umbrella is all the recruitment and outreach activity that happens in high schools and community colleges and college fairs and
wow.
national exhibitions. I oversee student marketing and communications, so website, email, social media, texting, and all the right messaging to the right students. We have a really robust campus visit experience and program. We have about any given year, maybe 40,000 to 50,000 students and families that come to campus to visit and experience Rutgers. And then, of course, a good part of the substance of what we do is reviewing those applications that come in and setting sort of the policy and the design of the evaluation process that happens year to year.
So now, Rutgers University in New Brunswick, New Jersey, it encompasses a lot of New Brunswick.
Yep.
So the school is very spread out all over, and there's also some type of bus system for the students, right? So how many students are going to school there? What's the undergrad level of students? Is it pretty large?
It is large, it is. It's a primarily undergraduate serving institution, and they represent the majority. So there's just over 50,000 students, undergraduate and graduate. Undergraduate makes up just over 36,000 of those students. And we've got we house, it's kind of toggles between 1 and 2, the largest sort of residential program on campus, and in terms of the number of students who are living on campus, though we have lots of students who might commute if they come from the New Jersey area, and that's right. Their preference. And as you said, it's very big. It's 2,600 acres from end to end.
Oh my God.
So, one of the ways that it's structured to make it a more intimate and livable experience for students is it's kind of set up into 5 different neighborhoods, the New Brunswick campus. And so each one, has classrooms and student centers and dining halls and residence halls, so that it narrows the student's experience so it doesn't feel like that big, overwhelming experience.
So does it depend on the major that they take, of which particular small little campus they're on?
Yeah, so students can live on any one of the 5 campuses, but very often once the student kind of gets up there in their sophomore, junior, senior years, and they start to be, sort of more invested in their particular major, and they start to have classes in one place, often they choose to live on the campus where their classes are going to be. But they do, as you mentioned, they can travel around campus using the intercampus bus system, which is free for students. It's second to the New Jersey public, bus system in terms of scope and how large it is. But that's the way we get them from campus to campus. But, typically students are kind of situated, they have their favorites. I live here, I take most of my classes here, but I like the dining hall over here, so that's where I go and eat, Yeah. But it helps to narrow down their experience a little bit so it doesn't feel so overwhelming.
So what's one of the concerns that that parents and students have when they come to a school like that. Do you hear any of those concerns?
Of course, yeah. I mean, I think it can, from the outside, look very overwhelming because it's physically sprawling. It's in terms of numbers, it's one of the largest institutions, in the country. What we try and do is talk about how it's made more intimate. We're all humans, right? And I'm always attuned to human behavior. There are only so many people that we are capable of interacting with and having, more intimate, and specific relationships with,
Sure,
right? And
sure.
so typically for students, the experience narrows or funnels down fairly quickly, right? So that'll start with probably where they live on campus, who's their roommate, who lives on their hall floor,
Yeah.
right? What are they majoring in, right? They're going to see those students again and again, right? Who's in their class? What student interest groups do they decide to join and spend time in? What do they go to the gym and see the same, students at spinning class, 3 times a week? And so, there's a unique experience for each student, and that's going to be very specific to each student. But it gets smaller very quickly. So we try and talk about that. So that does tend to be, a concern that we address. Obviously we're in a small city, and we talk about safety on campus, and we obviously have all of the different mechanisms to keep our students safe, and there's a lot of training and preparation that goes along with that. Some students have never lived in a small city or an urban environment
Sure.
before. So there's that, but we also talk too about, students need to feel psychologically safe,
Sure.
too, to be able to, share their concerns, or reach out to find the right resource, or to be able to talk about their identity. And we do a lot to help that along too.
So is the enrollment any different for the international student that comes to Rutgers compared to just the student from the United States?
So in terms of credentials, we ask the same for every student, and we evaluate applications the same way and have the same priorities in mind for every student. I would say that the difference is, if you can imagine, we've got students from applying all around the world, and their education systems don't look like our education systems. Yeah. So we have a team of specialists in our office who are experts in evaluating credentials from different countries so that they can interpret it and say, okay, we know this student's really well in the context that they're coming from, and we think that they would do well at Rutgers. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So now, are these the people that go to these different countries and actually solicit the school, I guess?
Yeah, so we, I'll give you an example of our outreach and activity last year. So we were in all 21 counties of New Jersey, between 15 and 20 U.S. states, and about 30 different countries we traveled to meet with students, to meet with families, to meet with counselors and educators, to, talk to them about Rutgers. And it's, those folks on the ground that are exactly, as you say, those experts who are most familiar with what does education in India look like? What does a Thai education look like? What does education in China look like? That are then able to interpret those credentials to say, yep, this is a student that's on par with other students who are domestically located to be successful here at Rutgers.
So a student that wants to go to Rutgers University, what are some of the things that they can look forward to by coming to a school like Rutgers?
Yeah, I think, when President Obama was at the university to give the graduation speech just a few years ago, he had this phrase that I just love. He said, "America converges here." And what he was trying to say is just, this is a really diverse, dynamic environment on all levels, right? Beyond the traditional sense of how diversity is used. And I think that is one of the most important things that Rutgers brings to the table, because students living in the world that we live in, which is very global, which is very interconnected, they need to be able to have exposure and connect with students who are different than they are, whether that's in terms of their academic goals, talents, but it could also be linguistically, religiously, background, in terms of race and ethnicity, different national origins. And I think that exposure, from what we hear from our students, is really important to their growth and their development. So that's kind of a critical asset that I think Rutgers brings to the table.
Now, also, a lot of parents always talk about cost of universities these days.
Yeah.
Is that something that comes up when they come to the school?
Of course. I mean, I think all parents and even students now, this Generation Z, is probably one of the most fiscally, interested generations that we've had, and they're asking the same questions their parents are, right? So, value and affordability, and for lack of a better way of putting it, because I think it's a little too concrete, but return on the investment that they're going to make is essential, and it's important. And we try and talk to students and families about the outcomes. Where are our students going? Into the best graduate schools. Where are they going in terms of employment? And what's the collection of experience that we're trying to give them, whether it be academic or co-curricular, internships or co-ops, that are going to lead to that success. So it's definitely a top of mind topic.
And how about the network at Rutgers? Being that the school's been around, 100 years?
It's been around for more than 250 years, actually. So there's quite a network, yeah. We've got more than 400,000 alumni, many of whom are in New Jersey and sort of, the tri-state area, contiguous states, if you will. So, for students who are rooted here already, or who are not rooted here, but very often college students, when they graduate, they sort of stay in the area. There's a lot of networking, in terms of connections with alums.
Now, what do you do personally in the enrollment management department? You covered a lot of different parts, admissions and marketing and so on.
Yep.
What's your day-to-day like? I mean, you're probably running around in a lot of different directions.
I have a lot of meetings. All those sort of components of admissions. It's my responsibility to kind of set the strategy, the enrollment strategy, and our policies that relate to how we're going to admit students, to recruitment, to marketing, to campus experience and whatnot, so that we're presenting the student with a holistic understanding of what Rutgers is all about, and bringing in the right class. Yeah.
Well, being that the name of the show is Secrets of College Planning, and you said that there is a way of looking at how people are admitted at Rutgers. Is there any type of secret that's not out there that people
Yeah, I mean,
would love to know?
I don't know if it's a secret really, because but every university does admissions just a little bit differently, right? We're all looking for something that's unique and special, so that it's a good match for our institution, right? Not every student is going to be the right Rutgers fit. They may be a better fit for a different university or college, and I think that that's okay. Given the volume of colleges and universities that we have throughout the country,
Sure.
There is a match out there, for everyone. I think, in terms of practical advice, what students and I think what families need to understand is that if a student is behind, and we're starting to talk more about early outreach to students even in middle school, if they're behind in terms of where they should be academically when they get into high school, they're going to be at a disadvantage. And so making sure that the students that are coming into high school, that 9th grade year, are where they should be, so that they can meet all the academic requirements, whether it's 4 years of English, 3 years of science, 3 years of math, etc. At that level that's going to prepare them well enough for college, and to be mindful of that preparation even earlier on. I think paying attention then, of course, in high school to doing well.
Sure.
And the students should be availing themselves of the strongest, most competitive curriculum that's available to them, right?
And by doing all of these high school, college nights and things of that sort, is that where Rutgers is really showing their stripes, I guess, you know?
Yeah, and certainly talking about what it takes to be prepared for college. You know, we are trying to meet the students where they are too. You know, because we are so dynamic. You know, there is something for everyone. And what I said before about each student's experience is slightly unique because they have different goals. But I think the benefit of being at a place like Rutgers is that there's a lot of choice,
Sure.
right? So that student who's an English major, but you know, takes part in the Livingston Theater Company and goes to the spinning class with students and is working with a professor on, you know, translating a book, you know, or doing research for a book that the professor's going to publish. That's a totally different experience than the student who is going to be a mechanical engineer major and is looking to participate in a co-op.
Yeah.
But it's there for them.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming to the end of our show,
Mm-hmm.
and usually I ask my guests, what advice do you want to give to the parents and the students that are interested in coming to Rutgers University? What advice do you want to give them?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, that I touched on some practical advice and that, you know, do well. Place yourself as a student in the most competitive curriculum that's available to you. Pay attention to consistency of how you're performing. Show us that you can be responsible and accountable through participation in either a work experience. A lot of our students work after school, and that's okay. You know, that shows us something about their character. Or participating in a special interest group and maybe rising to, you know, a leadership role. We want to see that. We want to hear that. The other side of it, which is more sort of broad stroke, would be, you know, I think that there's you know, a lot of pressure these days on students to identify what that linear path and career, you know, option is going to be. That's a lot of pressure for a young person, and we don't want to lose sight of the fact that college is also about exploring and discovering about what interests them, because that's what's going to sustain their motivation. And I hope that both students and parents and educators can be open to that.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you. It was fun.
So you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.